Hi, this is Mark. In this video, I'm going to talk about why Tinder is a waste of time for most men. It is not an app that you should be using if you are to use an app at all. And first off, like Tinder is probably going to attract the more promiscuous woman or woman who seek validation or narcissistic women and men in general. So, not the best platform to get on. Um, it's generally not going to lead to a good outcome. But there are some good apps where they filter based on personality, and if your standards are reasonable, you should be able to get options. But if your standards are unreasonable, then of course you're going to struggle immensely on the dating apps because women have so many options or a plethora of options, and they're generally going to shoot high if they're going to get on the app. And it's very difficult if they have so many messages bombarding their inbox that you are going to be selected anyways. In general, you got to come up with something creative. If you're going to spark interest, something that's different. Because nowadays, I think if we look at society as a whole, interest is lost quicker than ever before because you know think about the quality of stimuli that is inputting our sensory organs, or just think about the amount of stimuli entering our field of vision on a given frame, much more than the past, and we adapt to that. And essentially, because we constantly seek better or higher resolution images or just better quality images in general, it follows that we're going to be more distracted when we encounter stimuli that is less than desirable or that is much lower in resolution. So if there's a larger difference in a negative direction, it's going to cause more of a profound effect because the rate of change has increased so rapidly over the past 40 or so years with the advent of the internet. And people in general just lose interest faster, and it's so much harder, and thus that's why cheating is going up. In my view, it's ramping up, and just the amount of relationships is that people have or women have in general is increasing. Thus, they generally have more red flags, or they may have higher expectations or standards, or their checkoff list. They may have unreasonable an unreasonable checkoff list due to bad experience because they're going to be encountering more bad experiences, or the likelihood of encountering bad experiences is higher just because they're going through more and more men. And back in the day, of course, you generally met people in your social group. I would definitely recommend to try to depart from the apps and to try to just socialize real life because, you know, if a woman does not swipe right on you on the app, that does not imply that they would not go with you if you met them in real life. It doesn't work that way. The black pill tends to indicate that, or some people indicate that they think that it's this one-to-one relationship, or that works, or that dating apps is very equivalent to reality. But interest is not only tied to appearance, although appearance is the catalyst. So I think of appearance as a catalyst that induces some reaction. So, for instance, say a man is humorous and the woman finds him physically appealing, and then another man is just as humorous and she finds him physically unappealing. Well, the man who's appealing to her is going to induce a larger emotional reaction in the positive direction, and thus interest is going to ramp up higher, or the magnitude is going to be stronger. So that's kind of how I view it. But when you look at just a picture alone, it's static. It's just a picture. So thus, the interest is only going to be respect to the image, and it's not going. And on the apps, because women have a plethora of options, they're going to generally, even if a guy, let's say, would be in the range of attraction, but on the lower end, let's say, she's probably going to swipe left because she's trying to narrow down the number of options so she's not bombarded, so they're not bombarded. And thus, there's going to be, it's not going to fill the whole range. She's going to probably likely narrow it. And so the men who are still in the range but on the lower side are still going to be in the field. So the playing field is still open for them. And thus, you want to try in reality because you really never know. And of course, if you're below average, you can't expect someone well above or a woman well above average. So you have to kind of just be reasonable with your standards. And if you give up, that's on you. But the reality is, there's always room for improvement, and improvement is a slow process. So never. One thing is just never expect the instantaneous. I know a lot of people are used to that because of Instagram and social media, and we're used to, we're bombarded with more and more, rewards on a given, basis, and thus, we tend to seek these short-term boosts, like our dopamine system. Like think of pornography. We get these. If you're addicted to that, you get this release on a frequent basis, and when you get into those tendencies, you tend to seek pleasure at a higher frequency. Now, if you control yourself, if you have self-control, and you quit and so forth, and you actually work on yourself and improve your mindset, you'll at least find that things will slowly and slowly improve. If you start working out, your hormones would start going up. It's not going to be right away, and let's say you boost your hormone levels, you triple them just through diet and exercise, and you do that, you maintain it for 5 years. Your appearance is going to improve. I mean, you may develop more facial hair. You may just more of a rugged appearance, and you're going to start attracting at least more women in the population. So your possibilities are going to expand either way, and it may not be expanding all the way up the hierarchy, of course, but gives you more opportunities, and that's the whole point. The fact that you're even here, gives good evidence of, at least that your ancestors, they were perhaps lower on the hierarchy, but they succeeded. And there's a distribution. There's a distribution for a reason. It's obviously not just the Chads. It's obviously not that who succeed and who mate with all the women. Because if it was like that, we'd see the trajectory. We'd see people who look better. It would be very, very skewed. But we do see we have a decent distribution, and so forth. Most men are average and such, but we still see men who are, below and so forth. And how did they get to that point? Because of course, men who are below average can succeed. It's just, again, it's whether you settle yourself or choose not to, and it's basically a fork in the road at that point. Choice is yours to make the decision. In fact, appearance. I mean, it's at the end of the day, you're going to much rather have a better experience than just look at someone who's pretty and have lack of experience, or just, have a toxic or be in a toxic relationship and so forth. It's much better to get with someone who, is decent. You have to have, of course, sufficient physical attraction. That is a condition, initial condition, but someone who uplifts you rather than drags you down and wastes your time and energy. So that's just my view. I think dating apps for a lot of men are non-constructive, especially Tinder. I would stay away from Tinder if you're going to use it. Tinder's not a good way to collect data. I know the Black Pill tends to use Tinder as a reference. It is not a good reference in general. It's basically the pattern is that women who get on Tinder are usually less likely to even want to commit to long term. Generally, they're seeking, a lot of them are seeking just validation on that app. If you go, you end up finding though women who are less attractive actually tend to get on apps where personality matters a lot more, and that makes sense. They're settling themselves. They want someone who has good qualities for long term. So it's up to you. If you go on Tinder, not it's not a great app. It's for long term. So that's just my view. And of course, if you want to attract a lot of narcissists, or if you want to be on an app where the probability of finding a narcissist is higher, then so be it. Um, but yeah, that's just my criticism of the black pill. There's of course there's truths to the black pill, but just focusing on one domain is really doesn't make much sense. It's a localized domain, and there's a lot more out there. And if you're always on the internet, of course, you may have a more narrow scope of reality. And reality is it's larger than you think it is. Um, so forth a lot of times. So yeah, that's all I have right now. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next.